Hello, I'm Philip Konopka, Ag Agent in Lewis County.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Konopka, Ag Agent in Carter County, and welcome to Around the Farm. Today we're going to be talking about one of those obnoxious weeds that you find growing on your farm, and that's Johnsongrass.
Johnsongrass is a grass, and it is a perennial plant as well, meaning it will come back year after year. It can either reproduce by seed, as you can see in the background, or in the root system by rhizomes.
One of the things that makes Johnsongrass hard to control is because we are trying to control it typically in a grass pasture or hayfield. So there's not very many chemicals that are labeled for Johnsongrass. So one key component is to help eradicate it before it gets started. So if you see a few patches of Johnsongrass in your field, go out, physically remove those by hand or spot spray them with a glyphosate product before they become a problem.
An ounce of prevention is always more than a pound of curative any day of the week. Like you said, if we can get that problem when it's small, it'll be a whole lot easier than when it becomes a major problem in our hayfield.
Exactly. And our other major option that we want to utilize is rotation. And whether that's rotating to a grain crop like corn or soybeans, where there are more chemicals that are labeled for control of Johnsongrass, or rotating to a grazing system to help manage it. Those are our two best options.
Rotation is a tool typically as producers we don't utilize enough. Think of Johnsongrass just as any other pest. If we can do some rotation and throw some different management tools at it, we can get this feller back under control.
Mowing by itself will not completely eradicate Johnsongrass because we don't mow frequently enough to use up the reserves in the rhizomes. However, mowing will reduce the amount of seeds that are produced each year, which also generate new plants. You could convert your entire hay field into a pasture field, or you could cut your first cutting of hay and then turn your cattle in to graze. Grazing Johnsongrass helps to use up the reserves in those rhizomes, and continued grazing over 2 to 4 years will help to control your Johnsongrass problem.
Now, like you said, it's going to take 2 to 4 years. Don't expect to turn your cattle out in one season and expect the Johnsongrass to be under control.
There are some potential problems though with grazing Johnsongrass.
When grazing Johnsongrass, you get into the fall of the year and you need to start watching the weatherman and looking for that report of when it's going to frost. We need to be very concerned about grazing Johnsongrass in frost. Prussic acid is released from the plant when it does have a frost or a freeze. As long as the plant is stressed out and green, it's going to cause us some toxic issues with our livestock. And we can kill some livestock if we get on it too soon. If we let it wilt down and cure out, dry out, we won't have any issues. The trick with frost is, though, make sure that you walk the fields and that the Johnsongrass has dried down. Typically, we don't get a uniform frost across the field. We'll have patches here and patches there. So the Johnsongrass will not wilt down at the same amount of time.
So if you have multiple frosts over a series of days, you want to wait 5 to 7 days after that last frost and make sure that that plant is completely wilted down. You can also still bale that hay if we get an early frost before you've gotten your final cutting of hay off. Once it's properly cured, the prussic acid poisoning risk is diminished.
So let's take a look on this farming operation of a couple of different types of going to a row crop and to a grazing system to see this farm's management decisions on controlling Johnsongrass. Okay, so we've moved to a different location on the same farm. 3 years ago, this field behind me was an orchard grass field. Johnsongrass started to show up and was starting to become a big problem. So 2 years ago, they rotated to corn, and that opened up a few more different tools in the toolbox. But as you can see behind me, we still haven't got the problem solved. So the key is going to be patience.
Right. And even if you're spot spraying in your hay field, it's going to take more than one application to get Johnsongrass under control. So what are some herbicide options for corn or soybeans?
That is a great question. Glyphosate is always probably one of the best ones to use on it. The trick is you need to use the higher rate. We don't want to get cheap and use the lower rate, so if we use a higher rate, we're going to have a better chance of success.
But we still want to follow the label, right? Not just, the highest that we can put out there.
Correct, yes. Always, anytime you're dealing with herbicides, follow the label. That's the law. So make sure you do your homework and follow that label correctly. A few other options exist in corn and soybeans. AGR6 is a great publication that has everything into one place, but it can be a little overwhelming at some times. So contact your local county agent and they can help you dial in a herbicide plan for your operation.
Here's another example of a rotational method to take care of Johnsongrass. This field was cut for the first cutting of hay, and then the cattle have been turned in to graze the Johnsongrass.
Which is pretty cool because the cattle can do it a lot cheaper than we can spray it.
Absolutely.
We can actually turn around and make a profit on Johnsongrass.
Johnsongrass is a warm season grass, so when's the best time to spray Johnsongrass?
That's a great question. It's going to start coming up. You're first going to start noticing it in June, maybe early July, depending on the season. But that's not the time we want to spray. We want to wait later on, August and September, when it's starting to pull reserves back down to the roots. That way we can pull the herbicide down rather than everything being pushed up out.
And just remember, it's going to take a couple of years, if not longer, for an adequate spray program to show sufficient results. If you don't have the resources to rotate to a grain crop operation, alfalfa may be a choice for your rotation.
The trick is when you graze alfalfa, you've got to go strictly alfalfa. We cannot do a grass legume mix on this one because then we just tied our hands on Johnsongrass control. Straight alfalfa does offer some chemical controls. Again, we have a nice publication that goes over those options, and to simplify it, feel free to contact your county extension agent. But also, some of those chemicals may be clethodim, which is select, or post. Those two are chemical options, and probably my preference is the clethodim over the post.
Another benefit to raising alfalfa is that it will be mowed more frequently, and that will help with our seed production of the Johnsongrass.
If you have any more questions about Johnsongrass or Johnsongrass control, feel free to contact your local county extension office. There's one in every county in Kentucky, and we're more than happy to talk with each and every one of you.